Beaten but unburdened. That was one of the headlines after a defeat for Liverpool. Means they can't be invincible this season. And unlike me to wind things up, but use the hashtag, the headline makers. Is it a good thing that Liverpool were beaten? Melissa?
Jürgen Klopp seemed to suggest so. He said he was wondering whether this build-up of Invincibles talk, record points total, and just the rewriting of history was starting to filter through in the players' performances. They were more inhibited. Ultimately, we only know if it's a good thing on how the players react and respond to that defeat, which was the worst I've seen Liverpool play probably at any time under Jürgen Klopp. It was an atrocious performance. Actually, I don't even think they got started at any point, and their most promising piece of play, Watford scored directly after that. And so even if there was like one inkling of positivity that the team could draw or start to think, you know, we're actually now finding our feet in this game. The carpet was swiftly moved and ruthlessly so by Watford. I thought they were excellent and were fully deserving. Sometimes you watch a game like that and you think, oh, was it really a 3-0? It definitely was a 3-0. And if anything, Watford played so well in terms of the second balls, their physicality, their directness and aggression. They could have gotten more.
Gone out swinging, as Melissa said. Starting strong, do you agree?
I think it could have been 4 or 5, but I don't buy the notion of Liverpool being unburdened now. I think, looking at it from the players' perspective, I think the only thing keeping them going in terms of the Premier League, in terms of maintaining their standards, was to be unbeatable towards the end of the season, because they know in their minds they've won the league. So for me, that was the only sort of motivation for them. Now it'll be interesting now to see if their standards do drop collectively over a period of time, because they haven't been great since they come back from the winter break. West Ham should have beaten them until Fabianski did what he did as well. They got out of jail somewhat in that game as well. But some of the players had good games. Watford, everyone was poor. They were all poor. They all had a bad game. And when you have so many people at the same time in the one team having a bad day, you've got no chance. And that just proves that against anybody, even a team like Watford, who played really well, but they still took the 3 points.
If you can find some positive from it, use the hashtag, the headline makers. Was it a good thing? Both of you very strong on the lack of performance from Liverpool. But that point that Warren makes, Melissa, about actually the motivation there, well, surely they should have been motivated during that game. So was it a lack of motivation? Why they played poorly? Was it just one of those days?
No, I think it's so difficult. And that's why Arsenal going invincible is such a massive thing in the modern era, because having watched Liverpool all season and been there through this run, even extending to last season, the amount of fight and effort they've had to put in to make it 422 days unbeaten was extraordinary. And when people think of Liverpool, they still see them or paint them as this explosive machine, you know, Salah, Mane, Firmino, bang, bang, blitz. And it hasn't been that way. The run was due to determination, due to resilience, you know, how many times they've had to fight back, due to a very strong defensive structure. And I think that just gets tiring. There's only so much you can fight.
With that. I agree. I think when you look at the team that he's built, they were what we call that, he called it rock and roll football, didn't he, at once. But towards the end of last season and this season, I think Liverpool have been a lot more controlled. I think they've taken their foot off the gas and been able to turn it up when they need to, and then go back to how they've been playing over the season. I just think it's not that big a deal. They lost a game. I just think in the grand scheme of things,
don't give me that. If you'd been, and you were a player,
when it's gone, it's gone. Like I said earlier, I think the motivation domestically in the Premier League was for them to stay unbeaten. That's the only motivation they had, because they know they're going to win the league. They're 22 points clear. Now that's gone. I think when they sit on that beach after the Premier League, look ahead to Euro 2020s, I think we won the Premier League. That's an incredible achievement. First time in 30 years. I think they'll take that, and they can still win the Champions League as well. It's still going to be a great season for Liverpool.
They still domestically as well they could get records points total if they continue with their points per game as it is. They can still be the earliest ever Premier League winners. So there are still, you know, those records to play for, but I think the biggest thing is obviously ending that 30-year wait, which they've done in remarkable fashion. 44 games unbeaten is in the league is something else. And
who would want to be called the Invincibles 2, a sequel? Let's be clear here. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know. It's probably a good film in that.
We often do the thing of underplaying the Premier League. It's not such a competitive league, or the league is weak, and that's nonsensical. I've seen Watford were excellent, and they didn't look like a team in the relegation zone or a team with relegation problems. Norwich, when they play, Aston Villa in the League Cup against Manchester City, all these teams have a lot of fight in them. They have moments of quality. They have the ability on any given day to cause problems. And I think that's why inevitably Liverpool were going to lose. But also, I wasn't surprised that it was to a team like Watford at a place like Watford.
The only reason I keep almost poking the bear over it, not trying to make you angry, but
Not me personally.
Yeah, you personally. As you represent the players' union, that's what we're going to say. He doesn't. But Joessa Silva saying as well this week, it's great that people still talk about it.
Absolutely.
I've heard Ray Parlour. I've heard a lot of the Arsenal players this week celebrating the fact they are still the only Invincibles. You must have been through a run as a player where you went on 5, 6, 7 unbeaten. I know that's a tiny amount in comparison. Yeah, I am winding him up. But you will have gone on one of those runs, and the minute that you lose that, how that affects you.
I think what will be interesting, because we go back to that Invincibles team. They won 49. They were unbeaten for 49 games, lost a game at Old Trafford, and they went on a little bit of a slump after that for about 3 or 4 games. So interestingly, I'm going to put the FA Cup game aside, and I'm going to look to the Bournemouth game. It's a perfect game for Liverpool to come back and show that they are still this great side as well. And you're right about the Arsenal Invincible side. If you are a record setter, you don't want anyone to break that. Of course you don't. And if you are a team or you are an individual who are on the cusp of breaking a record, once that opportunity goes, you are going to be disappointed. But like I said, we get it into perspective. The disappointment should be gone now for the Liverpool squad. They should be fully focused on winning the Premier League, getting it wrapped up as soon as they can, which will help them in terms of defending the Champions League title.
She still wouldn't let it lie, because I'm going to ask, does it measure these two teams against one another, the Arsenal Invincibles against Liverpool? Does it maybe show who was better at any time?
I hate those comparative...
Good.
Because it's different era, different circumstances, different opposition. Also, the emergence of Chelsea and Manchester City since, and it's like where it doesn't feel like the Invincibles was that far away, but it's a completely different complexion of things now. And I think the Invincibles are one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen in football. Equally, I think Manchester City setting 100 points or getting 198 points over 2 seasons was absolutely astounding and extraordinary as well. Just as I think Liverpool going 44 games unbeaten for 422 days. I don't think it's like the Messi and Ronaldo debate. You don't have to choose one. No. It's okay. Enjoy them all.
Yeah, but when you get that annual at Christmas and it goes back record facts from football over the years, just won't be in there.
I'm with Melissa. I don't think you can... And you could also throw in the United team who won the treble in 1999 as well. All great teams of that time. Let's just enjoy them all.
The players that weren't part of that, so this formula that Klopp has created, and he himself spoke about the fact maybe over the past few games we've not been feeling it, just have got there by hook or by crook. Does it show the importance of those that weren't there? Captain Henderson.
Yeah, it does change things slightly. I would say the players that Liverpool had on the pitch against Watford should have won that game. That is still a standard-setting Liverpool side. That is still a very strong Liverpool side. And if you just rewind a little bit, even the team he put out against Atletico Madrid, people would say that's Jürgen Klopp's best 11. And it was the first time he was able to field them this season. And they lost that game. So it's not really about personnel. It's just about on the day not being on it, which Barcelona, Real Madrid, any team in world football can have an off day. But yes, Jordan Henderson, Joe Gomez, 2 players who've been crucial to the run in terms of Liverpool's protection, Liverpool's organisation on the pitch, and just their own leadership abilities and what they give to the squad. But I'm not having it that Liverpool lost that game because Jordan Henderson wasn't in the starting lineup or Gomez wasn't in the starting lineup. That's a void argument for me. Liverpool lost because Watford were excellent and they just never ever got going.
Watford were great, but Liverpool standards dropped in that game. They started quite sloppily as well. It all felt a little bit sort of lackadaisical. It felt as if we can just turn up and give a 6 or 7 out of 10 performance and we will get through somehow. Mo Salah or Mane will produce a moment of magic for us. And it didn't happen. It just cannot happen every game.
Much has been made, though, of those players that were missing. So despite what you both just said, Joe Gomez, of course, wasn't part of that starting lineup at Vicarage Road. But Jürgen Klopp was in defence of his defenders.
If anybody gave now Dejan Lovren the blame for our defeat, then I can't help these people. It was a massive challenge for Dejan to play against Troy Deeney. So many other centre-halves in the world would struggle in these specific situations. But like everybody in life, you need to be healthy, then you have to get fit, and when you are fit, you need rhythm. So that's the most difficult thing to get in professional football, because if you're out, you have sessions, stuff like this, but you don't play that often. So that's the situation. But he's an outstanding centre-half. We are Liverpool. We are always under pressure. We always have to deliver. We play away at Chelsea, and everybody expects us to win there. So, which is difficult. Was always difficult. Will always be difficult. So that's the situation. There's for sure no favourite in this game. It's not more pressure or less pressure than before. It's just a last 16 of the FA Cup, and we want to go through. That's the plan, and that's what hopefully everybody can see.
Jürgen Klopp, after that defeat then to Watford. Jermaine Craig, you can see, joins us. He's a journalist from Johannesburg. Hi, Jermaine.
Hi, Caroline.
What a delight to have you with us. Is that Kaiser Chiefs in the background? Who's that picture of in the background?
I'm at the Kaiser Chiefs village at the moment, yes, man. Wow. 50 years of Kaiser Chiefs this year.
Brilliant. I have my own bubble hat at home, but let's not get into that now. Question is, what I don't have at home is a Liverpool Invincible shirt. Should I have one? And how much do you think that will affect Liverpool from here on in?
Caroline, I think the fact that there's so many Arsenal fans who have come up and crowed about the Invincible season is a big tribute to Jürgen Klopp's team. I personally didn't think they would come anywhere close. I think it's amazing. 44 games unbeaten. Like Melissa said earlier, the game has evolved so much. There's so much more money in the game these days, so much better quality of squads. I think it's a fantastic run that Liverpool have been on. And yes, I think the Invincibles, unfortunately, will have to keep the T-shirt in the drawer for a bit longer. I think all Liverpool fans are looking for is to see the number 19. That's all that matters. 12 more points.
Jermaine, I just want to talk to you about Jürgen Klopp's come out and defended his defence. They didn't look at their best today. What would concern me moving forward in terms of Europe was the amount of one-on-ones that Watford had in that game.
I think undoubtedly, like all teams, they've suffered with an injury crisis this year. Joe Gomez, from being a sort of right back, he's really shown how good he is as a centre back. I think him and Virgil van Dijk to Liverpool having the season that they've had. Dejan Lovren, no doubt. I know he's saying no one can blame Dejan, and you can't. But no doubt the injury layoff has affected the sharpness, the communication. It's rare to see Watford have such a free run. I think Sarr and Deeney really had a real go at the full defence. And no doubt, I think even Joel Matip had an extended run in the team. Lovren, no doubt, he's been very, very cold and coming off after a long injury layoff. And they just haven't had that fluency in the defence. And it showed. So it's the nature of the game. You've got to have a strong squad. And it happens, on the receiving end of a big thrashing. And maybe that's not such a bad thing. If any team is allowed an off day at the office, it's Liverpool. I think it's still been fantastic. I'm sure they won't panic. Tonight takes a little bit more importance after the Watford result against Chelsea. And of course, I think they'll want to respond and go through to the quarterfinals. But the next game against Bournemouth is crucial just to get that blip off the radar and tick off the 4 more wins that they need.
Jermaine, a lot has been made of Liverpool's defence, and obviously it malfunctioned at Watford. But are you concerned at all by the lack of offensive play from them. There was absolutely nothing. They had one shot on target, but more than that, the front three actually never got into the game at all. And it's not just a one-off against Watford. It's been in the last few weeks where only sort of in the second half they seem to come alive.
Melissa, it's almost sacrilege to have a bit of a criticism of them up front. But I have been concerned for a while. For me, as ridiculous as it may sound, the phenomenal season they've had has been so incredible. But I felt that they played a lot better last season than they have this season. I thought there was a lot more fluency from midfield, and I think the strikers gelled a lot better. And the three guys up front are just incredible. They're crazy. But I think that he does need to freshen up the squad a little bit. I think he's also the kind of very determined coach who's going to do things his way. He backs the squad, and he feels that they're the squad that's going to get him over the line for the league. But I'm hoping that there's substance to the Timo Werner discussions that have been going on in Germany. I think that front three needs some really strong, genuine competition. As fantastic as they are, no team in the world doesn't need good competition. So I was very concerned about the lack of a cutting edge from them up front. And it's not a once-off, like you said. They've battled for a bit of fluency all season. If one of them has invariably clicked when the others have not been on their best form. So it's hard to criticize them, but I do think that they looked a bit tired and felt a bit tired. And they do need a bit of a freshening up of the squad in the new season, I believe.
Jermaine, thank you so much for coming on. Enjoy your time at the Kaiser Chiefs. Brilliant fans. If you ever get the chance, go and watch a Kaiser Chiefs game. It is loud. Well worth going to. Jermaine then with his thoughts, a couple of yours using the hashtag the headline makers. Tulu, I'm going to hazard a guess as an Arsenal fan, says, yeah, it's a good thing Liverpool lost. I don't want anyone doing the Invincibles again, he says. And Kipper says, so typical of you media making excuses for Liverpool's loss to Henderson being out. Where were you when 6 starters on City were out for weeks? No excuses from City. Melissa, you talked about written a column, The Independent, about the transfer policy of Liverpool going forward and who they need to target. If we put aside those that weren't there, where are the areas you think they need to strengthen?
Well, Liverpool are determined to stick with the policy that got them to where they are, which means only buying what you need, what's necessary, staying with the stylistic profile, only breaking the bank when it's a certified game changer. So Virgil van Dijk, Alisson, at Melwood, when they were talked about, they were called transformers. Liverpool knew no matter how much money they paid for them, those two would walk into that starting lineup and transform the team. Now, when Liverpool are looking at the market, obviously because of the position they're in, they're European champions, world champions, won the Super Cup, 22 points ahead in the Premier League, good chance of getting to the final again this year if they can overcome Atletico because they are so skilled in the tournament, that they will be linked with Kylian Mbappe, Jadon Sancho, and all these players have been speaking about Liverpool. But those prices do not make sense to Liverpool because they're looking at their front three and thinking, we expect to keep all three of them. So why would you pay £150 million for Jadon Sancho when you've still got that front three and you have to keep Jadon Sancho happy and there's the knock-on effect of wages? A £150 million player demands to be the most expensive or well-paid player in the team. That then Virgil van Dijk says, well, I'm your most important player, I want more money. So it creates that scenario. Now, when I'm looking at Liverpool, I think cover at fullback, very important for Andy Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold. And I look at the midfield area, and I think the age of the squad is a good one now for performing, but they need to start building and future planning. So midfield would be another area. And then, of course, somebody like a Timo Werner or something to freshen up that attacking area. But it needs to be a player who comes in and is happy to not start regularly, which is obviously a very difficult thing in football today. But they don't feel that they need reinforcements in the full-back positions, and they believe they've started future planning. So I think Liverpool will make substantial additions because these days £30 million, or what used to be a £30 million player is now like £50 million. But I don't think people should be getting too excited to see a blockbuster buy unless one of their big hitters goes.
It's interesting you talk about that, because I'd be interested to get your thoughts on Minamino as well, who they brought in during the transfer window. I think he's probably the kind of player that they do actually need, so they've already brought him in terms of someone in between the midfield and the forward line who's going to just bring that little bit of magic, sprinkle that stardust in and around the pitch when they need to unlock a tight defence, as they did against Atletico Madrid. That was the kind of player that they do need. But you are absolutely spot on. What Liverpool have done in their recruitment has been phenomenal. They brought in players like Sadio Mane, who ironically Louis van der Gaal was laughed at for looking at when he was at Southampton as well. He was ridiculed in terms of his recruitment of him as well. Mane, as I said, Lallana, players like that who have come in and bought into what the manager wants as well. Firmino, one or two people, a lot of raised eyebrows when he was brought in, because there was talk of him possibly going to Manchester United as well. So those players have been players who've come in, done well and grown in stature as Liverpool have grown in stature. Now all of a sudden people talk about Firmino being one of the best number 9s or centre forwards in the world. That just gives you an idea of his improvement as well. But
are you saying they might have identified some of that we're just not talking about?
I think so. I don't see Liverpool, unless, as what Melissa said, a Van Dijk. Obvious. We don't need a recruitment consultant to actually come in and sign him, or Alisson Becker. Best defender, best defender and best goalkeeper in the world. It's those other players who are going to come in, add something to the squad and probably eventually grow and become great Liverpool players.
We're going to go on and talk Chelsea and much, much more. Manchester United, we've had a few tweets on that already. Do want to pay some, celebrate Watford for a little bit. It is tough being down the bottom of the table, right? And then you got Liverpool coming in with that swagger and everyone expecting, and then that performance happens. Where'd it come from?
I think Watford, for a start, are actually incredibly courageous off the bat. They're quite an aggressive team, a team that likes to make you feel you're in a game with them. And often when you watch their performances, they're not getting the results, but there's so much in their performance that makes you think, how have they lost this game? Or how are they in the relegation zone? And I think on Saturday, just everything aligned for them. They were up for it. They had a very clever defensive structure that they stuck to. And then they won every single individual battle. The battle for second balls, which is so massive in a game like that, they dominated it. You had Troy Deeney, who played the most typical Troy Deeney performance. He was a nuisance throughout, and he was always... Troy is very clever. When they play Liverpool, he never is on Van Dijk. He always engages the other centre-back. And with Dejan Lovren, he will get sucked into the battle. And often that's what Klopp chooses him because of that physicality, because he likes to get involved. But when he gets sucked into the battle, Liverpool don't deal with the result of him being outwitted by Deeney.
But that as a non-defender seems quite an obvious thing to do. No one wants to go up against Van Dijk, right? So is that now a lesson that can be learned? I've turned it back to Liverpool, but that's now a lesson that other clubs can undo Liverpool.
I think it's very difficult. It's not like we've spent the whole season with teams not trying to beat Liverpool or teams not trying to outsmart them or outfight them. Everybody's tried. They haven't been successful. Like I said, I think everything aligned for Watford. What they were really good, they completely nullified Liverpool. They were really good at nullifying. Teams struggle to both nullify and then punish. And Watford punished all the mistakes, every mistake. They made Liverpool pay for it. I thought Sarr, who I was very excited when he came to the Premier League because a player I love watching on the international stage, he had a great game. Like I said, that link up between him and Deeney was so dangerous for Liverpool. And Watford, it was the perfect storm for them of them doing everything right and Liverpool just being completely wrong all over the show.
But what was clever about it as well is that if you watch Sarr as well, he's been brought in as a winger. Nigel Pearson cleverly brought him in field to play alongside Deeney. And that, for now, if you notice well, for the last 6 months, a lot more teams are playing with two central strikers, which a lot of the modern defenders don't enjoy and they can't deal with that. So that was another issue as well. And you're right, they've been defensively playing really well. But a lot of teams have tried to out-football Liverpool, and that's been their problem. Watford weren't that bothered about that. They went long. They weren't embarrassed to go long to Dean and say, we're going to put the ball up to you, midfielders, Doucouré, everyone else, go up, squeeze up the pitch and support them. And that's what they did. There's nothing wrong with going a little bit more direct sometimes. And that worked absolutely perfectly for Liverpool.
When you think about Watford's seasons, a couple of managers change, new manager coming in, having to deal with the Deeney injury, things turning around to just think they might have a little bit about them now, that bite that you need to stay up in the Premier League. Liverpool, Watford done. Liverpool then finally losing, but can they recover, as we've discussed, against a Chelsea side who could equally do with the morale-boosting result?